Hi, I'm Ali from PCGamesN and I'm joined by Rich.
Hello.
And today we're going to tell you about the latest campaign pack for Total War Warhammer 2. I know you're very excited about this one, so why don't you run down exactly what we're expecting to see?
Right, so it's called Curse of the Vampire Coast, and it's a campaign pack. And what that means, there's different tiers of Warhammer DLC, and the campaign pack is like the one that adds a brand new faction and 4 new legendary lords.
So what is the new faction this time around?
Well, the new faction will, I imagine, it'll be Vampire Coast.
Right.
And there are 4 legendary lords, which we know are going to be 4 different undead pirate lords, who presumably will all use a new roster. And they all have different agendas or reasons for pursuing what is the new campaign level objective.
Right.
So we know the Vampire Coast is playable in both the Vortex and Immortal Empires. But in the Vortex campaign, they're not actually seeking to control the Vortex. They're looking to find the Star Metal Harpoon, which is the key to controlling the vast Merworm, which is a new massive monster that you see just at the end of the new trailer, which apparently is going to be capable of causing sea storms, and controlling it is the key to controlling the seas. So that's what all the pirate lords are setting out to do. And we can talk a little bit about what the who and what the pirate lords might be, but the one that we see in the campaign in the reveal trailer is Luthor Harkon, who's the governor or the lord or the master of the Vampire Coast. The Vampire Coast is a faction that exists in the game right now. We'll expect to see them fleshed out and for Luthor Harkon to be one of their legendary lords. Luthor Harkon, a little on his backstory, he was a vampire sired by Abharash. Abharash being one of the original generation of super vampires that emerged in, or that were sired or born, for want of a better word, in Nehekara back in the day. And Luthor Harkon, he came to the Vampire Coast on the shores of Lustria and plundered and pillaged and things, and disturbed a lizardmen temple in search of riches and artifacts and things, and the protective glyphs that the lizardmen put on that temple addled his mind. So he's insane. Okay. And it looks like in the campaign trailer we see him talking about putting himself back together again. We see him actually raiding the lizardmen temple. So you see the event where he goes mad, and it looks like he might have a sort of personal quest to sort of repair his mind and track down the rest of the lizardmen artifacts, because you see him raiding up and down the coast looking for them. So yeah, plenty going on. I've forgotten the rest of what you asked me.
That was more or less it. We were going to go on from there, from the very deep dive, I would say, into Warhammer lore, to the fact that we knew something was about to happen.
Yeah.
Pretty simply.
Yeah. So they've been teasing this for a little while now. I think some people even talked about having spotted some teasers in previous releases. But the seeds of curiosity were first sown when Sartosa, the pirate capital of the Warhammer world, was added to the Mortal Empires map. Oh, okay. And everyone thought that the next campaign pack for Warhammer 2 will have to be playable in both the Vortex campaign and the Mortal Empires campaign. So the addition of Sartosa to the Mortal Empires campaign made everyone think, So that was the first clue, and since then the teasers have been coming. There was talk in a development blog about salt, which led people and cooking things up, which led people to suspect it might be halflings, because halflings like their food. But salt obviously is nautical slang. Yeah. And since then we've had a couple of teasers where there was a map where the smudges in the corners, if they lined up with the continents on the Vortex map, the X marks the spot in the center might have lined up over Albion, which would have been cool. But we also now know that if you match the smudges in the corners to the landmass around Sartosa, then actually the X marks the spot hits Sartosa perfectly. And then there was another one just yesterday. We saw a big long letter from a character that we haven't heard of in the lore before, addressing a mysterious admiral. And it's surrounded by sort of nautical accoutrements and paraphernalia, which and there's mention of the Rusting Harbour, which is a location in Sartosa. So that pretty much confirmed for everybody that it's going to be nautical themed, and that Sartosa was going to feature. And so the Vampire Coast and Sartosa will both be locations that can be fleshed out. That's more or less certain between the trailer and the teasers. So yeah, it's all sort of fitted together. But Vampire Coast / Sartosa was only really confirmed properly yesterday. Before that, it could have been a bunch of different things.
Okay, So, speaking of the trailer, what have we seen so far? What are some of the headline features we're going to expect?
It looks pretty cool. There's so some of the new units just look crazy. Like there's a massive giant crab which looks reminiscent a little bit of like an Arachnarok spider from the greenskins. So like there's going to be another sort of crustacean monster. There's also two right at the end. There's two sort of constructs or giants that look like they're built out of ship parts. One of them has a flamethrower. You also see a range of guns sort of lined up on the shore, one of which is absolutely massive, like a really, really super-sized artillery piece. So it looks like they might be the sort of tier 5 end game units in the army roster. The rest of the roster looks like the rest of the units look like they're going to be a bit of a spin on undead. You see some creatures that look a bit like Vargheists, but they're sort of cut at the waist.
They were quite horrible.
They're quite horrible, yeah. And you see some things that look like crypt horrors or sort of ogre-sized or troll-sized units with like tentacles and things coming out of their faces. It's all very Pirates of the Caribbean 2, you know, the crew of the Flying Dutchman.
Yeah, okay.
It's all very nautical mutations and things.
A bit Lovecraft.
Yeah, a little bit of Lovecraft going on, and there's ranks of zombies who are carrying sort of hand cannons, and it looks like there are sort of proper-sized cannons as well, transplanted presumably from a ship or something. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be a spin on the Vampire Count's army list, but with lots and lots of different units and dynamics and things, because the Vampire Counts don't have any ranged units in their roster right now. The Vampire Coast looks like it's definitely going to have that, plus a few interesting things going on. And Creative Assembly have talked a little bit about sort of new campaign mechanics being introduced. There's a brand new Law of Magic. It's also worth mentioning that there was an expansion. There was a Games Workshop specialist game released in 2011 called Dreadfleet. It looks like the Vampire Coast faction might be taking some inspiration from that. In fact, actually, there's mention of the word Dreadfleet in the press release. So the Dreadfleet specialist game saw two factions of 5 ships sort of teaming up against each other, sort of 2 alliances of 5 ships pit against each other. One was a vampire admiral whose name eludes me right now, but he wasn't Luthor Harkon, it was a different vampire admiral. So he might be another one of the legendary lords. The people who served under him might also be different legendary lords. There's a lot of inspiration that can be taken from Dreadfleet for this expansion, and it's also worth noting that Andy Hall, Games Workshop, a former Games Workshop specialist game designer who worked on Dreadfleet, is currently serving at Creative Assembly as their lead narrative designer. So it's understandable that this project might be quite close to his heart. There's plenty more to say about Curse of the Vampire Coast, plenty more that I've written and speculated about on PCGamesN.com, so head over there if you'd like to learn more. It's coming out on November the 8th. The release date has been confirmed. That's a little bit sooner than we might have expected, which is quite exciting. We expect it'll be the same sort of price as previous campaign packs. You can go to pre-order it now or check it out and look for more information on Steam.
So Rich, obviously this is a maritime themed expansion,
Yes.
so can we expect to finally see naval battles in Total Warhammer with the launch of this next expansion?
No.
Right.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see. No, I'll expand on that. It's so yeah, Creative Assembly announced in a blog post that they published after the press release and the trailer first went live. They addressed this question because obviously it's a question that a lot of people would ask. Yeah. Can you really do a maritime expansion without a fully fleshed out naval battle system? So Creative Assembly are not introducing a sort of ship-to-ship battle system of the kind that we have seen in previous Total Wars, but they are changing the way that naval battles will occur. Auto-resolve is not your only option anymore.
Okay.
What they are introducing, it looks like, interestingly, they've come up with the same idea as the modding community. You'll remember writing a story earlier in the week about a mod for Total Warhammer 2, which will basically throw, when 2 ships meet each other and they start to fight on the high seas, the mod will throw them onto a battle map which is set on a bunch of islands around the area, sort of themed appropriately. So there's winter islands if your battle takes place near the Arctic. And you'll basically fight a land battle, but on islands if your ships meet at sea. And that is essentially what Creative Assembly have introduced. It looks like they came up with the same idea at the same time as the modding community. They actually say in their blog post, we were surprised that the modding community came, and impressed that the modding community came up with the same idea as us and then released their mod. So yeah, you can use the mod, and Creative Assembly are very magnanimous about it. They're saying, we don't want to undermine the work of the modding community. Here's a shout out, you can go get their mod. But we also have, our own system now introduced in the game with this DLC that is the equivalent. And they talk about a bunch of bonuses that if your naval army has a bunch of bonuses that apply to it, they will find ways for them to make that work on the island battles. And if you encounter a black arc at sea, there is a new sort of unique black arc map where you'll fight a land-based battle, but on the battlements or the ramparts of the black arc itself.
That's quite cool.
That is very cool. Yeah, surrounded by sort of spiny dark elf constructions and architecture and things. So that's basically the new Naval Battles system. It's not exactly the perfect solution. Loads of people would love to see a ship-to-ship Total Warhammer battle system, maybe inspired by Dreadfleet, the specialist game that we mentioned just a second ago. But CA say it's basically too much work to come up with a completely new battle system beyond the scope of a single DLC. So they haven't actually definitively ruled it out for the future, but I would be pretty skeptical of it actually happening at any time. In the meantime, this is definitely a much more interesting way to settle an encounter at sea than just auto-resolve.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, well that's everything we know about, that's everything we've got time to tell you right now about Curse of Vampire Coast, but if you head to PCGamesN.com, then Rich has his own speculation that he can share with you, and I'm sure there'll be more to come over the coming weeks.
Hope so.
If you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a comment below and let us know what you think of the new units heading to the expansion.
They look mad. Tell us how mad they look.
They do look very good. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.